Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Primetime Alberta Sports Show. This evening, we are joined by Rob Litwunski, the CEO of Hockey Alberta. And Rob, we're so happy to have you on the show. We've been trying to get in touch with your office just to get some comments from you guys to ease the confusion and the frustration out there. So please, thanks very much for being with us. How are you doing?
That's a loaded question. But first off, thanks for having me, Andrew. And yeah, I mean, how are we? It's we're getting used to an environment really for the last 10 or 11 months where, you know, you're not necessarily sure what's coming on the next day or the next week. So, you know, the last week we've had obviously is kind of the cherry on top, and we're, you know, the good news is we're moving forward with what we know, and you know, we'll continue to work with our entire sport to get it back to where it needs to be.
No kidding. You talk about a roller coaster of emotion, not just for you guys being the governing body for hockey in Alberta, but every sport. Like all of a sudden, everybody's no, we're done, and then all of a sudden, government goes, "Oh, no, you guys can go back to play." That must have been like, did you guys get an email from them, a phone call from them, or did you guys just read it like the rest of us in the paper the next morning?
No, I think if we back up to kind of what we obviously went through the kind of the pause, I guess, and we've been in that situation until we knew, at least until January 28th. We were hoping or maybe expecting to get some news on January 21st. You know, we kind of thought we heard that a week out we would all hear, not just sport, but, you know, restaurant owners, all the different elements. We thought we'd hear then. We didn't, so we knew that the existing order would be carrying forward at least the 28th of December or January, sorry. So that kind of rewinds us to where we were there. And I think over the course of, then we started hearing that there would certainly be, you know, then we saw the government's introduction of step 1, 2, 3, 4. We wanted to get some more clarification on what exactly step 1 meant, which we all know would start on February the 8th. So actually the week before, so I guess last week, we're sitting here on February the 9th today. Last week, we had the opportunity to talk with our representatives at government. We sat on many town halls of AHS and the government. We held our own town halls with our members, and we were able to clarify what we thought step 1 meant. And that was not just what we thought, but what we were told, which was, you know, the opportunity for one-on-one training to start back again, and then the opportunity furthermore to the fact that one-on-one training could actually expand itself into more than just one-on-one group on the ice at the same time. So on our town hall, as late as Thursday night last week, we had announced that with AHS representation. So that's what we were going out with. We put that information out to our members that were on the call, and we had great attendance. Over 250 people came onto the calls or representing our associations. So we released that because we promised to do that. Saturday did come as a surprise because Saturday was an amendment to what step 1 was, and I think from that point forward, we announced what we could on later Saturday. So proud of our team for to really, you know, within 3 or 4 hours, we had that back out to our members. Obviously, everyone heard it publicly, and then we've made some further additions to that as we've got more clarity here on Monday. So that's kind of the whole story from post Christmas, I guess, starting into 2021, and it kind of follows along the same lines as what 2020 was for us. Just kind of read and react and do the best we can to pass information on to our members.
Now, this has got to be frustrating or upsetting to not just yourself, but to the member associations. Like, was this, like, you alluded that, yeah, we kind of knew we were going to be on hold for a certain amount of time, but to not really know, like, the unknown, has it been frustrating for you guys to just, you know, sit back and I guess take the bullet, if you will, from parents that are frustrated? Like, there's been numerous amounts of I wouldn't call them protests, but gatherings that people have been trying to get the eye of the GOV and Health Canada in their own ways, and it's all been very civil and very, you know, well put together. But it's got to be frustrating for you guys, or unnerving that, you know, we wanted to go through the season and it stopped. So how's it going on your guys' end, trying to ease that tension or that maybe that frustration that's out there?
I think the first thing I'd say, like, I'm a customer in the game as well as a parent, so I get that. I think I get that totally. You know, I've been in hockey my whole life. I think I love it as much as anybody. So when something you love so much is are taken away from us, and the opportunity gets into play. But I think it's been important for us to, if we have that, we share that kind of internally, and then as we move out, as we talk with our members, I think our job is to be strong, and is to make sure that we communicate the messages that are there. We've been in this now so long that the adage that if we only knew this going forward, we've kind of gotten past that now. We know that we know what we know today, and we know we're trying to plan for the future, and that can be difficult. But I think that in the last week, we've had the opportunity to probably meet with as many, last couple of weeks, I guess, to meet with as many government officials as possible, and to hear from their perspective that they appreciate the fact that we've tried to maintain a positive outlook. We've tried to maintain a proactive outlook. While we've said from day one of our primary messages, right from dating back to probably June into now, is that we think we can help our government in making their decisions, and we know that they're making decisions very quickly as well. But we've always felt that we can help. So if there's one item that we've continued to hit home repeatedly, is that we think that that we can assist in when they're starting to make decisions on what a certain step looks like for sport. And we know it's not just hockey. We know all sport can help, but we can only speak for our sport. And we've tried to do that as best we can. So I think that, as we move through this next period, I think that can be better. I think the government has listened, and I think they've got some different engagement techniques that can move us from there. So there's almost no time for frustration. You got to move on. And we've done that from, right from the start. And obviously, late January, early February has created a whole bunch of new elements for us, and we're not done yet. So we got lots to go.
You speak about the future. What do you think the future is going to be, just based on some of the stuff that people have been, expressing out there? The mental aspect of some of the players, like obviously our older players that are in the U18 program and possibly the U16 program and even the Bantams, so U15. What does the future look like for them with Hockey Alberta? Has there been any thought to that in what could be for next year for them, if anything? Could you comment to that?
Yeah, I think right now, when you talk about the actual, when you're talking about age divisions, that's a national regulation. So that's something that if any decision is made would have to happen nationally, of course. So I think we're not unlike BC, Saskatchewan, anyone, across the country, with respect to if there's a decision on that, it likely would have to be a national decision, most likely. So that's something that I think, our national body is aware of some of the concerns that have been expressed to us, and it's something we've passed on and we'll just discuss. So that's what I'd say about the kind of the age division. In terms of the future, I think what we know right now is we obviously made the decision with respect to not concluding any further league play. But again, that was also intended that didn't mean that hockey was over. It meant that the opportunity for local activities to take place, if and when the government restrictions were be relieved, that's still possible. So the future is about first and foremost right now working with our members as to what the newest step one guidelines say, because there have been some changes as we talked about earlier. So there's some work there that we need to put a little bit more into our plan, because we've placed a priority on getting the information we know out this week. So Saturday we were out within a few hours of people saw the announcement publicly, but we were out very soon. We also updated that on Monday. So now we have to do some work behind the scenes to make sure people understand the safety protocols and frankly the real importance of there could be a real ease to say, oh my God, hockey's back. Let's just kind of let some of these restrictions go away, and maybe somebody's looking, maybe they're not. But I think for our sake, the government of Alberta has set it their standard as to what is going to get us from step one to step two. All of us, it's the responsibility of all of us to make sure that we assist ourselves in trying to proceed through that safely. So that's going to be a very important step as well, that hey, we have the ability to get on the ice, which is terrific. However, it comes with restrictions that we need to follow. So I think that's the immediate future. And then certainly as we move into the spring, we know that, we'll continue to try, we'll either try and make predictions on what step 2 or 3, and that would probably not the smartest thing, but we'll be ready when we know what step 2 and step 3 look like, and see what happens over the course of the spring.
Now you brought up steps. I just want to put this up on screen for our viewers. obviously they can find more information on your website, which is what I've done. But primarily it just looks like step one is stating that we can play be on the ice, half ice, in groups of 10 and still be able to participate in the sport. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, what the guidance that the order was just finished, the actual order from government was finished on February 8th, for February 8th. So that tells you about the environment we're in a little bit. And ultimately, we updated on from the hockey side, what that means is the ability to, as you've mentioned, participate with maximum groups of 10, with physical distancing of 9 feet or 3 meters. And I think that's a different. People would realize in the fall it was 2 meters, so that's 3 meters. That's very similar to what we've seen, or what we think what we know about British Columbia or Saskatchewan with the 3 meter distancing. So the opportunity to split the ice into two gives us two kind of playing fields ultimately, where those two groups cannot interact in any way. And then once they're in their group, they also have to make sure that they have that 9 feet or 3 meter difference as well. So that's what we know today, and that's what we've launched. And obviously we're doing our work right now to just try and help on the number of things on what about dressing rooms, and what about when you go get your break for water bottles, and some things, frankly, that I think we learned in the fall that, I think we saw where we did some things really good. When I say we, I mean our whole system, and we saw some things where it was easy to fall down. So I think that we want to make sure we do our best to make sure we assist with that. And that's something that's ongoing as we speak.
Okay. We have to take a quick commercial break, Rob. Please stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Rob, the CEO of Hockey Alberta, and we're talking to him just about the future of hockey and what it entails and what it's going to look like for the next couple months or possibly year. Rob, again, thanks for joining us today. Before we went to commercial break, we were just talking about some of the new impactive rules that are being handed down by the Alberta government and AHS. And I don't want to sit on it, and I don't want to harp on it. So let's move on to happier things. When do you foresee the possibility of actually being able to have games? Are we looking at possibly next season? Or do you think we'll actually be able to get some games in near March, April? What are your thoughts? Or what do you know, I guess?
Yeah, second one's probably a better place to go. I've had some others have asked me about my prediction, and I'm certainly out of the prediction business, so I don't do that. But here's what we know. We know that step 2 within the government's plan would likely lead to some further restrictions being removed. We don't know what those are. I don't think anybody knows yet, but we do have some time to work towards that. We know that that's based on hospitalization numbers. So that's something that technically is out of, it's in all of our control, but as a specific sport, it's certainly outside of just our control. So we know that would be a 3-week period from February 8th. So we know the next change of any sort, if there's going to be one, would be at earliest March 1st. And certainly if we don't hit the numbers the government talked about, the hospitalization numbers, it would be later. So we know that's the first thing. I would imagine, and again, this is where I don't want to get into being overly predictive, but I would suggest there'd be some shift if our sport does it positively. But if we were to find that the changes we've made starting February 8th aren't working in our sport, then maybe nothing changes, or maybe we regress. But thinking optimistically, you'd think that there would be some form of transition and a staged effort, and I don't know exactly what that would mean right then. We know that step 3 then has they note that adult team sport would be back, and that, of course, for the most part, isn't really, majority of our population is youth playing hockey. But what we do know is when they've signaled that there's the possibility of another phase, and that would be at least 3 weeks later. So if I was an optimist, I would say that we'd see some progression on March the 1st at its earliest, and we don't know exactly what that could be. That could be anything from maybe the groups get a little bit bigger, maybe the opportunity for less physical distancing. Like, those are some things that might be possible. And I would suggest that as we move forward 3 weeks past that, so 6 weeks from basically today, then you open up a little bit more to, if we accomplish what the government wants us to, then we get back to the opportunity to do something more. And maybe that does include the opportunity to get back to where we were in the fall, which was, kind of that cohort and taking breaks and mini leagues and things like that. So that'd be a bit of the optimist view, but it's certainly not a prediction, but some of the things that we can look at when we kind of look forward.
So moving forward, I know you mentioned a few times you don't like being predicting. Can you foresee the possibility of some spring programs being able to open up with Hockey Alberta? So like your development camps, your U18 Team Alberta camps, has that been put to the side right now, or is that something you guys are looking at? Or again, you can't predict. So
we can't, but I guess we haven't postponed them yet. We haven't canceled them yet. So I think that those decisions would have to be made in due course. Most of those types of activities usually they've started in late March, early April, and then kind of summarize themselves in April or May. So I think that we want to, take a look at what that could mean. If they were to happen, they may not look the same way. We'd have to deal with whatever kind of restrictions. So I guess what I could say is I've probably put the challenge in front of our team of staff and volunteers that, that we try and be ready for anything, and that we don't want to create any type of false hope that those are going to happen no matter what. But we also want to make sure that, if there's subtle things we can do to make sure that we can safely return to those types of programs, whether they're what they look like today or whether they have to look a little differently, even if that means we have to push back the time frame a little bit, I think we're open to that. But saying that, both when you come to decisions we've made in our provincials and our leagues, we're also, I don't know if the word's proud, but we also have shown that when sometimes you have to make the decision to be able to move on, and in some point, obviously it won't be feasible at some point to say we have to keep them alive. So right now, that's possible. We're going to build plans behind the scenes as to what they could look like, knowing what we know today, but also trying to maybe predict what does April 1st look like. Not sure, but certainly try and do the best we can around that. So that just around our program specifically.
Nice. That's it's got to be. I don't envy your staff right now having to sit there and try to guesstimate or think about what's going to happen in the future. So you guys are, in my opinion, I think we're doing the best we can and able to still get the kids on the ice. With that said, we have to take another quick commercial break here. When we come back, I want to ask you some more questions about how the leagues may look next year, if you don't mind. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We are again joined by Rob, the CEO of Hockey Alberta, and I've just brought up their Team Alberta slide here from their website just as a backdrop for us. Rob, what does the future hold for Hockey Alberta now moving into it? Past COVID, let's pretend COVID's done. We're happy, it's over, everyone's playing. What does the future of our young players look? Are we looking strong? Are we looking better than ever? What do you guys see coming down the pipes? How does it look for us?
Well, I'll go this place first, and you can certainly steer me in a different direction if you want. I think that what we learned through COVID is that our system, which at different times you could argue, could be, we're very well coordinated, but at times what regions do or what specific leagues do is kind of seems to take precedent over what we're doing provincially, and frankly, sometimes that's a better way to go. But right from the start, like right from basically June on, I think there's been a bit of we've had the chance to, I believe, improve alignment, partially because we had to. In the past, hockey just happened. So if I was used to doing hockey the way I did it my way, and if it lined up with everything else, great. If it didn't, so be it. People like it, and I'm talking kind of the way we operate, whether it be in regions or leagues or whatever. we were forced really early to be a better organization, to better line, right? And I think that, while we'll never ever be perfect, especially with an organization as massive as we have been, I think we took great strides in terms of how we tried to bring the game back organized, because in an organized fashion. In the past, it used to just happen. It's just every cycle was the same cycle, and certainly we've always been proud of the things we do behind the scenes to make it better. But it's nothing like a good crisis to probably align you better, and that's what we've had. And I think that was even shown in terms of the decision we made in early February with respect to the leagues. That probably a few years ago that would be very difficult, but it's shown that as a system together, sometimes we're much stronger working together. And I think that's what we're learning and moving ahead, is that working together is going to be really important to make sure that those opportunities for the athletes are there, and that we can react for them going forward. So hopefully that kind of answers that, but certainly open to anything else if you want to go down that path.
I know that hit on the point. I think Hockey Alberta is doing a tremendous job based on what is out there and what's available to them, and how they've been able to react to different situations over the years. I did say I still don't want to throw you under the bus, but I have to ask you this, sir. I have to ask you, what I have a daughter in hockey. What is Hockey Alberta doing to push the women's hockey in Alberta? What are you guys doing? What does the future look like for women's hockey with Hockey Alberta? There's a stumping question for you. I have to get you on this.
Yeah, I don't think it's stumping at all. I think it's a fair question, absolutely. And I mean, we just, I'm very proud of just the past weekend. We had Female Hockey Day in Alberta, which was an opportunity to use innovation. We obviously can't gather in groups. That's normally a big kind of event and festival that we have in one community and then celebrate. We did it virtually, and our staff did a terrific job. We're aligned, I believe, as good as anybody in the country with leadership under Kendall Newell as our manager of female hockey, and not just the AFHL and what you see there, but the opportunity to work with more and more minor hockey associations. We've done some things in the last year, organizing people or associations that work on female hockey specifically. So we continue to move down that path, and we've had some good results. With respect to actually the registration increasing. So I think we're, I'll say this repeatedly, we're never ever going to attain perfection or where we want to be. But we certainly taken the steps. I could bore you with a longer story about female hockey maybe, but it wouldn't be boring to me. But looking back 5 years ago, we made a major determination that we weren't good enough in the female game and the way we administrate and the way we operate. And the results of that are some of the things we're seeing today, and certainly that that conscience and that effort that we want to put into female hockey continues. So I don't think it's putting me on the spot at all. We certainly we're proud of what we've been able to grow, but we know that we still always have room to grow as well. So and that's something that we've put in the right steps, I think, in the last few years to do that.
I don't think any business is perfect, Rob, and I had to ask you that because I have seen the tremendous amount of effort put in by groups such as like the Edmonton Girls Hockey Association, the Calgary Girls Hockey Association, working hand in hand with you guys, even Okotoks. I think it's girls hockey has really come strides, and I really wish I would have had my daughter now than her back then, because I think there's been more focus on it now, and I'm very proud that she's been able to work through the ranks of Hockey Alberta and now is doing very well, which is awesome.
What I'd say, Andrew, is two things. One of the jerseys behind me is my daughter, so she did play for a while. Same thing as you, probably earlier than things, but she enjoyed it. She moved on to she graduated and moved on to a different sport. The second thing I'd say with respect to female hockey specifically, and seeing that you may have a passion for it, is if you want to invite, I'd be more than happy. I know where to find her, but I'm sure that, Kendall would be a terrific person to talk to just about the female game. I had a chance to sit in on not all of our sessions over the past weekend, but I think there's a lot there to offer, and I don't think I've probably done it justice with one answer. But if it's something that you guys want to bring us back again, I know where to find her, and I'm sure she would be happy to kind of take you through more ins and outs of the female game, and you'd see a level of passion come out that would be terrific. So it's you got to run your show, but I'll just offer a potential future guest if you want. So,
well, we'll have to take you up on that. We'll bring you both back.
Yeah.
Rob, The other thing I'd like to try to ask, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, is there has been some rumors going around throughout the hockey world that they are thinking or looking at allowing some of those U18 players to have an extended year in order to get scouted. I'm not sure. Have you heard these rumors?
I'm not sure I've heard the rumors. I've heard the questions that are coming, asking people whether or not there's the ability to do that. And I'd kind of point back to, unfortunately not having an answer at this point with that being a national, a national regulation and whatnot. But certainly we've seen the questions. And what I'd say though, it'd be difficult to do, I believe. And that's my own opinion, based on either being in the system for as long as I have, or just maybe my own thoughts. So that's something that I think would have to be considered. And I certainly, I appreciate the fact that especially in the graduating, the graduating age for the minor hockey players, that it seems even more polarized. But as a system, I think they'd have to come up with some solutions in what they're looking at. And I know the same type of discussions going on in junior hockey as well, in terms of what happens there. So that's all I could offer. I think right now it's not necessarily going to answer it, because we don't know the answer right now, but we know that, you use the word rumor. I'd say we've been getting questions. Hey, what's going to go on here? And right now there's no definitive answer yet, but I think that's something we know we have to work towards getting for everyone.
That's fair enough. It's you did allude earlier to your numbers going up. Could you share with our viewers how Hockey Alberta has grown over the years, and possibly where the numbers are right now, and maybe projections for the future?
Well, I think most recently we predicted we'd be, again, as we go through, we've been at this for 10 months and it feels probably most of us like 10 years, I guess. But months ago, in building our budgets, we had to make a prediction as to what is hockey going to look like. And keep in mind that you're building something when we didn't know what the guidelines would even be yet. So we were pretty pleasantly surprised, I think, we certainly were down this past year in minor hockey, but not, we predicted we'd be down around 10% or so. And I'm not sure we actually hit that number, just based on the uncertainty. At the time, there was, you have all kinds of discussions. So you have is it going to be a catastrophic year? Is it going to be a year where hockey, let's go back to June or July, where, there's a possibility that maybe the game doesn't come back at all. And maybe, so we were fortunate to kind of be in a place where I think pretty reasonable, considering the circumstances. Many associations, I think, were bang on. And so I think that was a real positive. In terms of going forward, I think that, we're going to have to all collectively work really hard to make sure that we, provide those opportunities for players to want to come back and to come back into the game. And I think that's, that's a challenge in front of, it's easy for me to say from the provincial level, but locally and everywhere, it's something that's really important for us moving ahead.
One question that's come to mind that I did want to ask you as well is how is Hockey Canada helping Hockey Alberta work with our officiating? One thing that I do recall at a meeting a few months back was we need more officials here in Alberta. Like, obviously, we always need officials, but what are we doing to attract more officials to the game? Is there a strategic plan that's been able to come up that, like, here's a plug for you if you need more? But what are we doing? What can we look for, and what's Hockey Alberta able to do to bring in more officials?
Yeah, I think I'd offer these few things. Number one, Hockey Canada, I think over the course of this pandemic has put together, I believe they call it a task team, which has got members of across the country, and that I think kind of trying to redefine how we train and educate and really put a priority on officiating. So I think that's been a positive step, and a lot of credit to them in terms of that. We've been fortunate to be tied into that. In terms of our numbers, I think one of the challenges with officiating numbers that I know of is that, our numbers, generally speaking, are actually they can be quite strong in terms of the total numbers. But I think that, if you talk to people that know far more about the officiating side of the game than me, would say that we also have we lose a lot every year, right? So we bring new people in, but we lose lots. So I think that's something that we have to continue to get better at. And it's another area of, not to kind of beat the same drum a little bit, but it's another area of our business that we identified, I'd say a few years ago, that we could be more aligned with. And it's something that we're trying to take steps across the whole province to to continue to grow that. And once again, another plug for another staff person that's specific to an area. But Brett Kelly's our manager of officiating, and again, probably its own show with its own kind of system, really, because there's an awful lot that goes with officiating as well. So that's how we've been progressing. What I'd say about this year, and tying into the question about numbers before and officiating, is that we, the way our system was back, we actually were down significantly this year. Which kind of makes sense when you think of, by the time most officials would be trained kind of in September, October timeframe, and obviously hockey starting in there. I think there was a number of, with the uncertainty in the game, we never had the chance to kind of fully perform that, with hockey really being on pause in November. So I think in our officiating world, it'll be interesting to see if our numbers go back into what we've been in the past, which largely have been consistent. But this year, obviously, there's been a bit of a drop off. So I'm quite curious to see. I certainly hope that it's just a 1 year type drop for what I would consider to be somewhat obvious reasons with COVID and uncertainty. If there's no hockey games being played, your likelihood of saying this is my year to sign up for officiating probably is less. But we'll be monitoring that very closely.
Next question for you, sir. Coaches. Obviously, very stressful job, just as officiating, but the behavior of some coaches past years definitely questionable. Been a few coaches in the NHL. Is Hockey Alberta starting to look at more strategic planning to help coaches, learn to count to 10 before they throw a stick at a ref? What's Hockey Alberta looking to for years to come? Like, I love the online tool that we take as parents, and I know there's one for coaches. I've done that as well. So are there going to be more tools made available now to coaches, since we've had this lockdown, maybe help with mental health aspects with players, on ice training, being able to do more zoning? Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say that, when we look at our strategic plan, and we look at what we're here for, we're here to make a good experience for the player, and we know that. So one of the definitive ways to do that, and we all know that, and you would know that from being involved in the game, one of the best ways to do that is give a team a good coach and a good coaching staff, and you can probably look back at that year and say that was a pretty good year, regardless of what everyone else does. And I know every other factor, but that's a huge part. So we've identified kind of in our coach development plan a long time ago that we've spread out our regional coordinators, our regional managers out in different parts of our province to really be there to help drive the training of coaches forward. So under the leadership of through Justin Fessick in our office, we've continued to kind of push the coaching messages that way. And we think that, we're as good as any in the country doing that, partially because of, why would I say that? Because we've regionalized. And we've given ourselves the resources to actually, do more. So I think that's something we continue to look at around the, behaviors around coaching and whatnot. I think we all have a ways to go yet. I think that we've taken great steps. You mentioned the RIS program that's both from a parent's perspective and also from a coach's perspective. I think that we're always preaching, that respect is certainly important in the game. But I think that, and this is not coming from me as much as being in the room of people that know more about coaching than I do, that we've focused a lot on the technical training of coaches for years, like our certification programs and whatnot. Some of the respect in sport starts to get into behaviors. And I think what we're realizing is that, coaches, they need to know their technical side. We need to know that. But really, for that given year or those given moments that they have, they're important leaders for those children. So the ability for us to potentially continue to look at, from Hockey Canada down, how we actually help people be those types of leaders that kids need, because really that's a big part of our experience. Is probably, as we think back to our hockey lives and whatnot, we probably don't always think about the technical expertise of our coaches, but we know the coaches that were leaders for us. They're often the people you mention later in life saying, I remember so-and-so. And we all have those names in our head, and they're that quick. We as a sport, I think, and all sport, have to continue to get back that we've probably been very heavy on the technical side, which is important. It's very important. Yep. But really, we have to continue to do as much as we can to help foster and deliver that leadership area as well, because that's likely what makes the players come back. The majority of players, they had that great experience with the coach, they made it fun, and they come back the next year. And it sounds overly simple, but that really, that's what we want to focus on. So I guess it's a long, winding answer to, it's a key part of our strategic plan. It's a key element to, our goal is to make the experience of every player as good as it can be, outstanding. One of the best ways to do that is continue to focus on coaching. So it's a huge element for us.
Definitely. Like, even if you sit down with even when you sit down with my daughter, who's now 16, and you ask her, she still names a coach, and I'm like, who is that? But they remember that funny thing that the coach did on the ice, or you ask them about a game, they're like, oh, I don't remember the game. I remember being at the hotel and we jumped in and out of the pool, or we got caught by security for running in the hallway. So yeah, definitely it's a thing that's on every coach's mind, to make sure the kids have fun and they enjoy themselves. Rob, we got to have one more quick commercial break here, sir, and then we'll wrap her up. Thanks for being with us. Hopefully you can hang in there a few more minutes. We'll be right back after these messages.
At Super 8 Winnipeg West, we have your comfort in mind with free Wi-Fi and free daily Superstart breakfast. We also have guest laundry facilities, a state-of-the-art fitness center, and a jetted hot tub. Sleep well in a spacious guest room equipped with plush new bedding, a 50-inch flat-screen HD TV, microwave, mini refrigerator, and Keurig coffee maker. Or book a suite with a kitchen, ideal for extended stays. Super 8 Winnipeg West, located just inside the perimeter on Portage Avenue.
Again, guys, we're joined by Rob, the CEO of Hockey Alberta. Rob, thanks again for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and I don't want to take much more of it, but I do want to hit on a few things here just before we wrap up, if you don't mind. Number one, hockey has seemed to evolve in Alberta, and I would just like you to comment on this. There's a lot of people that are leaving Hockey Alberta and moving to those unsanctioned organizations. If you could, what would you say to those parents to bring them back, or why do you think those parents have left Hockey Alberta and moved to those unsanctioned leagues?
Yeah, no problem. I think that, why do I think people are leaving to unsanctioned leagues? I think there's something being offered that they don't feel the current system of Hockey Alberta has. I mean, I think that's probably pretty. I think most people would agree with that, right? And from a Hockey Alberta standpoint, and I think nationally everywhere, we have to recognize that the environment has changed. That is something that the opportunity is being provided in hockey, which is great, but outside of our current system, the way it is right now, and that's something we have to look at. So, I mean, we got to look at our system and see where it can be better. Why is it that people feel that they can be satisfied with a program that's outside? Why couldn't we provide that same opportunity? And I think we've always started that process and going through where we go. So I think that's something that we have to be very aware of. I think from our board leadership level, I think competition in most industries is a good thing. Obviously in hockey, there probably hasn't been as much of that, frankly, in many cases. And in this case, there's options, and options should make the whole system better for the customer. And really, that's what we're all in it for. So, and I think that from our perspective, that's some things we have to continue to work with our members on to say, what is it that we're not providing that we should be, or that we can? And I think in some cases, those are things that maybe can happen. In other cases, maybe they can't. But I think, we have to make sure we're looking at those options all the time.
I like that answer. I'm satisfied. It's I know that it's I had to ask because it's been on the back of my mind that it's got to be frustrating to see these other groups and organizations start up. Rob, are there any plans in the future for Hockey Alberta to either support or allow their governing bodies throughout Alberta to offer spring programs for those players that are interested? Because we already have the CSSHL that pretty much runs from August to June or July. Is there any thought to allowing or helping support spring hockey within Hockey Alberta's plan?
For sure. I mean, and this year's probably as good as any to talk about it because there's a shift in place, right? So I believe, and I don't know this yet, but I think that many associations will be in a position to offer probably more than they have in the past around spring, just because like I said much earlier, there's some associations that we're going to close down kind of what we've done in the past. We're going to see who's interested in doing spring programming and then move forward. The challenge for all of us right now is that we don't know exactly what spring programming could be. It's not like, oh, we're just going to be playing 5-on-5 in April. Well, we don't know that yet. So I think this is a good year for many of our associations to do that trial. And I know many of them are thinking about it, and that opportunity might be there for them as well. From Hockey Alberta standpoint, I'd suggest that we've always had what we've called the alternate season model. Really, it's an opportunity for our associations or other groups to actually register as part of Hockey Alberta and go through kind of spring, primarily development program and whatnot. It hasn't really ever taken off, partially because, as you know, the spring programming hold has kind of largely been private, and that's fine. So we've never really been able to find that right mix between, how could Hockey Alberta and kind of the private groups work together. So when we launched it with British Columbia and Saskatchewan and Manitoba too. I would say that while it does, we do have registrations from our members and from special tournaments and whatnot over the course of the spring, it largely hasn't taken off. So I would suggest that the opportunity for that might be, that might be presented to us in this 2021, in this, we're not quite post-pandemic, but wherever we're closing in on post-pandemic. So I think the opportunity to look at that and maybe look at different partnerships with some of our private groups is open there. So I would hope that we have the chance to at least have some conversations that maybe before didn't make sense, saying, well, spring hockey is it is what it is, and it does its thing for the customers that like it, and Hockey Alberta and our members are largely out of that part of the business. I think we're going to see a bit of a meshing for that. And I would argue and say frankly that perhaps this opportunity is one that we can become better partners to say we're actually all in this for the same thing. People love the game of hockey, and is there a way that we can actually have a win-win relationship there? So this is the year that more of those conversations start happening, and certainly I'd be wide open to having those.
I think it would be. I would like to see stuff offered through Hockey Alberta that would allow spring programming. I think it would be great. You can continue with your team if those players want to, and you could play right through June, July type thing and get some more ice. I'm happy you guys are looking at it. I think it'll be great, and I think it'll be awesome to see in the future what it brings. On a closing note, I want to close on a happy note. Provincials. We are going to see them next year, hopefully. Cross our fingers. Yes.
Hey, that's next. That's a year from now. So, if we're hopefully we're talking post-pandemic at that point. So if we are, then certainly, the opportunity to operate those would be, with it not happening now for 2 consecutive seasons, it would be a great thrill, and not, for everybody, obviously. So, none of us.
My daughter's team is still the reigning champions because.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, so I mean, it's a big part of what how you finalize the season and whatnot. So we look forward to bringing them back, and certainly, our partner ATV has been very patient around that. Obviously, things out of our control took place, but certainly I hope we're looking at the fall first off as a post-pandemic hockey season. And if it is, then I believe that if we continue to stay in the post-pandemic time period, we'll have what was more of a normal season. And hopefully we take what we've learned in the last 10 months and apply it to that season and make it even better for everyone.
Awesome. Rob, thanks very much for your time, sir. Please stay right there. Thanks everyone for watching Alberta Primetime Sports Show. We look forward to our next show next week. And take care. Have a great night. Good night.